All right, I've got a couple minutes after 6, so I'm going to get us started here. We have our regular session of August 30, 2016. I'll go ahead and call our session to order. First item of business that we have on the agenda is the opening prayer and the pledges of allegiance to the flags of the United States and the state of Texas. And Chaplain Jim, is it Howe? Huff. Chaplain Jim Huff from the Community Bible Church is here to lead us in the opening prayer. Pastor, if you would.
Good morning, or good afternoon. We read from God's holy word, Psalm 23, 1 through 3. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Let us pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we are gathered together tonight for the Schertz City Council meeting to discuss, plan, and implement strategic programs for the city of Schertz, Texas. This is a time when we need your divine presence, wisdom, and guidance as these plans are brought before this council and become a reality for our community. It is through your eternal blessings, grace, and mercy that we can successfully navigate through these important issues. Therefore, we ask your favor upon each member of the Schertz City Council, their advisory members, and their staff. May the decisions made here tonight, as well as for all those made here in this chamber, reflect your will and your continued supply in meeting needs of the citizens of Schertz. Thank you, O Lord, for guiding us in the past. Thank you for your presence with us today. Thank you for your promises to always guide us in the future. If there are any special needs that anyone has here tonight, may you answer their prayers and be honored as you give them their requests. Additionally, we pray for our Schertz City Police, Fire Department, American military personnel, and civilian employees who are serving our state of Texas, our nation, and overseas. May you keep them in your divine watchful eye and under your eternal protective care. We each pray according to our own hearts, but I pray these in your holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you, Chaplain. Next on the agenda, we have announcements of upcoming city events. Which one of you, Mr. Waite, do you have the duty?
Sure, why not? In the morning,
Very good.
from 8 o'clock till 11:30 a.m. out here in front of the community center, we have our bi-monthly blood drive put on by the EMS department. And I'll be out there at 0800, so look forward to seeing everybody else out there giving some blood tomorrow. Monday, September 5th, the city offices will be closed in observance of Labor Day. Thursday, September 8th at 11:30 is the Northeast Partnership meeting at the Olympia Hills Golf and Conference Center. And then Tuesday, September 13th, we do have a city council meeting that night at 6 p.m. And Tuesday, October 4th, want to get it penciled in on the calendars, is National Night Out for the city of Schertz. Also, we have some election reminders for voters. The last day to register to vote is Tuesday, October 11th. First day of early voting for the November election will be Monday, October 24th, and the last day of early voting will be Friday, November 4th, and election day is Tuesday, November 8th.
Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda, announcements and recognitions by the city manager, Mr. Kessel. Mr. Kessel?
Mayor, Council, I've got a kind of an interesting story I wanted to share with you about one of our employees. She's one of our new police recruits, Officer Amanda Cato, and she responded to an interesting call recently, actually July 19th, and it was a call for a house fire. And when she arrived at the fire There were flames coming out of the building, and she made sure that the residents were out. It got there, I think, just before the Quint did. Our new Quint did arrive, and she actually assisted them in setting up the hoses, pulling hoses, attaching them, and making sure that the firefighters were supported. Kind of an interesting story. They saved quite a bit of time on that. We're able to work on the fire. Interestingly, as a new recruit, she had never responded to a house fire before, so this was her first time to do that, and just kind of, said, hey, what can I do to help? And they said, go do this, go do that. A lot of communities maybe have a rivalry between police and fire. Maybe there's issues, fire and ice and all of that stuff. Not in our community. They work together as a team, even the new recruits. So congratulations to her and also to the two departments for having a selection process that produces that kind of an individual. So I wanted to just share the story with you, and if you see her, congratulate her on her firefighting skills as well.
Absolutely. That's great stuff. Thank you. Next on the agenda is a presentation. It says a presentation in recognition of Planning Certificate of Achievement for 2016. Mr. James. Not Mr. James. The Planning Department. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Wanted to come here tonight to let you guys know that for the third year in a row that planning staff and planning commission and all the city elected officials, we received the Certificate of Achievement for Planning Excellence again for the city of Schertz for 2016. This Planning Excellence Award is a combination of a variety of things. It's education of staff, certifications of staff, education for our commission, ordinance updates, just a multitude of things that goes into this Planning Excellence Award. Just quickly wanted to read the letter that was sent out. It says, Dear Mayor Carpenter, it is with great pleasure that the Texas chapter of American Planning Association presents its 2016 Certificate of Achievement for Planning Excellence to the Planning Department. This certificate recognizes the professional planning standards demonstrated by your planning staff and the support exhibit by City Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission. More specifically, the City of Schertz meets the chapter's goals for increasing awareness of professional planning, recognizing planning departments which meet certain professional requirements, enhancing neighborhood and citizen recognition of planning efforts, encouraging the funding of professional training for commissioners and staff, and aiding in economic development and community image. So, just wanted to let you know. And if you don't mind, could you come down and take a photo with the planning department?
Absolutely. Well done.
No, he won't.
He won't?
No. We move back or just
There we go. Now we have equality. There we go.
that we look close?
You only have one camera this week, no? The new camera? The new one. Oh my goodness.
Focuses on its own.
Is that in the budget? Very good.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And even though you say it's the third year in a row, it's by no means routine. It doesn't just happen. It's the reflection of a lot of hard work, so thank you once again. Next item that we have on the agenda this evening is a hearing of residents, and this evening we have Mr. Robert Brockman who signed up to speak to us. Mr. Brockman?
Robert Brockman, 1000 Elbell Road. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Evening.
The city has added some school zone lights that reflect into the school zone. It's a yellow light, and there's one over there by the library that's on a post, but there's a tree blocking the light that shines toward the school zone. That's the only one I've noticed, so that I think needs to be taken care of.
Mr. Kessel?
We've actually had some of our crews out trying to trim some of the trees up, and we'll make note of that particular location and make sure they get there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brotman. All right, I don't have anyone else to sign up this evening, so I will move on to the consent agenda items. On the consent agenda this evening, we have item number 1, consideration or action regarding the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of August 23rd, 2016. Ordinance 16S27, item number 2, an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, amending the Code of Ordinances, the Unified Development Code, or UDC, Section 21.9.5, Exterior Construction and Design Standards, Section 21.9.7, Landscaping, Section 21.9.8, Screening and Fencing, Section 21.9.9, Tree Preservation and Mitigation, Section 21.10.4, Schedule of off-street parking requirements, Section 21.10.8, off-street loading, unloading requirements, Section 21.14.3, additional design requirements, and Section 21.16, definitions, providing a reversionary clause, providing a repealing clause, providing a severability clause, providing a penalty clause, and providing an effective date. And that's not at all the longest caption I have to read this evening. Item number 3, Ordinance 16S28, zoning case 2016-006, an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, amending the official zoning map by rezoning approximately 14 acres of land from Manufacturing District Light, or M1, to Agricultural District AD. Gentlemen, any of these that need to be considered individually? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the items that are on consent?
So move.
I think my right ear picked it up first, so I have a motion by Mr. Fowler. Second. I have a second from Mr. Zeus. Any other comments or questions from council? Hearing none, then I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
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 4 ayes and no nays, the motion carries. Our discussion and action items, item number 4, Resolution 16R69, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing the city manager to enter into an interlocal agreement between Schertz, Seguin, and the Schertz, Seguin Local Government Corporation outlining the cost allocation methods for repaying debt associated with 2 expansion projects of the Schertz, Seguin Local Government Corporation and other matters in connection therewith. Perfect. And Mr. Greenwald, who heads up our Schertz, Seguin Local Government Corporation, as our corporate
He wanted to
president.
speak before I ran through.
Yes, please. Mr. Greenwald.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank, obviously, the mayor and the mayor of Seguin, Mr. Don Keel, and our city staff, Mr. Kessel, Mr. Waite, and the city staff of Seguin for working almost entirely over the weekend to actually cement the deal that's going to finalize this process that you're fixing to do right now, which will get us the money to do our second project of the original 3 projects. Hopefully we will get everything signed tonight. They were supposed to meet at 5:30 tonight. Haven't heard any words. I assume they were going to pass it. I hope you gentlemen also will pass it. But thank you again for the city staff's input and the time they spent. It wasn't more than just a couple of hours. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenwald. Thank you. Mr. Waite?
So we've got a couple of agenda items. The first one is approving an agreement that outlines the cost allocation for these 2 projects. If you may remember, back in early August, Alan Cockrell came over and did a presentation on the overall project and kind of what it was. We're going to touch on a couple of highlights tonight. He presented the history. The corporation was incorporated in 1999. The first project was the water that we currently enjoy coming out of Gonzales County. In 2006, they added the Guadalupe well field into the plan to be able to do that. 2011, kept that in the plan, expanded it to 6,500 acre feet possibility. And then in 2016, it continued to stay in the plan and move forward. The board of the SSLGC said that it determined it was time and sought out the Texas Water Development Board for funding for this project. And it's actually two separate projects. The first one is constructing a parallel pipeline that will run from kind of where you see the blue star just southwest of Seguin up here to Schertz. We currently have a 36-inch pipeline in the ground. This project will put a minimum of another 36-inch pipeline in the ground. Our current pipeline, especially in the summer months, is maxed out at capacity. A lot of that is because of our growth and demand for water, but the other part of that is to benefit the corporation and both cities. In 2011, the corporation entered into an agreement with SAWS to transport their almost 12,000 acre-feet a year out of their Gonzales well field through our pipeline. That took up effectively half the capacity of our pipeline. When that was done in 2011, it was recognized that a second pipeline would need to be constructed. There was also the realization, as our water demand has continued to grow, that we would need to develop the second well field there in Guadalupe County, the little pink area just across the county line from our Gonzales project. And so the corporation applied for and was fortunate enough to receive funding from the Texas Water Development Board. And there's a little bit of the usage history there. You can kind of see SAWS is the black line, Schertz is the black line's is the total, pardon me. And the blue line right underneath it is our water consumption. And you can kind of see how it continues to grow each summer a little bit bigger than the previous summer. Some of our other customers that we have for the project that's coming out of the Gonzales, Selma has actually also increased their contract with another 250 acre-feet that'll eventually come out of the Guadalupe well field. And then that's the 2015 Selma number. And then SAWS Tier 2, you may remember that we came last year and said that SAWS, who we thought would buy water from the corporation, any excess water forever, was not going to buy any excess water in 2016. They've since reconsidered that. They are going to buy water in 2017 and are very favorable to talking about a guaranteed amount they will take from the corporation through 2021 when they're slated to put their Vista Ridge pipeline into service coming down from the Bryan College Station area. So that's all good news. It'll help minimize the growth of our rates. The Guadalupe project, it was in those three regional plans. It's needed for summer peaking specifically, and it's also needed for our continued growth. It is anticipated that by 2020 or 2021, we will be maxing out our share of the Gonzales well field, 6,300 acre-feet. We'll be maxing that out for our needs. There is a little excess there that we can take from the Seguin side until we get the other project in service, but we're going to need that second well field. And once we're that large, moving all the water through the pipeline, we're going to need that second pipeline. So the well field has begun to be developed over the last couple of years. The corporation has spent already approximately $12.8 million on that. A little breakdown of that, the largest majority of that has been the land costs and the water leases, of course, and then some other costs to get it ready to be able to develop the well field. So they did apply for funding. They applied for $66,500,000 from the Texas Water Development Board. That was granted, or the application was approved, and now it's up to everybody to agree to that so that the application can go forward and the funding can actually be commenced. A little bit about that. The SWIFT funding actually divided that $66 million into $43 million on a low-interest loan for 30 years and $22.8 million on a Water Development Board participation agreement where basically they kind of own the pipeline and we lease to own it back from them. That allows us to pay smaller amounts up front and basically hold off on $6.5 million of that for 10 years at zero interest. So not only do we have really great interest rates because we're borrowing underneath the state of Texas, we have very favorable repayment rates while we're developing the pipeline and the well field, and while we're growing that and finding customers for it, our debt payments will start small and grow throughout the life of the loan. So it's really a strong and favorable funding agreement. You see some dates there and a little bit on the pipeline project. Mr. Greenwald talked about an agreement that we worked out with Seguin, and that's what we're here to approve in item number 4, or seek your approval for in item number 4. We began talking about this several months ago, And the rate consultant for SSLGC, who's Dan Jackson with economist.com, he's also the city's rate consultant, brought forward a plan to look at funding this and rolling everything Schertz-Seguin does into a one-rate plan. And that looked very favorable to us. Realize when I say us, I'm talking myself, Mr. Kessel, the city staff, absent the guru of the SSLGC who was here since it started, Mr. Beerswall. And so we kind of started pushing, let's do the one-rate plan. It looks like it'd be better for everybody. And our partners in this got a little nervous and had a little bit of angst over moving forward with that. One is we were trying to change, what we didn't know until recently was that we were trying to change the way that this had been proposed and delivered to their city council for the last 3 years. The method that SSLGC has always talked about for funding the Guadalupe Wellfield was that wellfield would stand on its own. Our partner has no reasonable, foreseeable need for water out of that wellfield. And so they had a lot of concern. We start rolling the cost of that wellfield into the original, and all of a sudden they may have to pay higher rates for water they may never need. And so after kind of really listening to where they were and examining the issue, we've backed off that and said, let's carry forward in the original plan. And we were able to hammer out an agreement to do that with the city of Seguin. Some of the highlights of that agreement, and my apologies for not getting that to you all till this morning, but I want to kind of walk through these with you and I'll answer any questions you may have, is that both projects are going to be funded with the water from with the money from the Texas Water Development Board that I just showed you, the $66.5 million. The parallel pipeline will be an SSLGC project, and it's going to be started as soon as possible. What that means is the cost of that pipeline will be input into every drop of water that SSLGC sells. They're the ones that made the decision, with the cities backing them up, to give half of the capacity in the original line to SAWS. We have reaped that benefit over the last 5 years in that we've not had a rate increase from SSLGC in those 5 years until this coming year. So the corporation has benefited to estimates of about $7 million in doing that with SAWS. So that's by all rights an SSLGC project, and everybody agrees with that. The Guadalupe Wellfield is going to move forward in this agreement as a standalone project, and by that it means that it will have its own O&M rates, and the debt for that project will be paid by the users of that water. The Guadalupe Wellfield construction will be delayed for at least 1 year. And the reason for that is twofold. One is we're trying to resolve and really explore what's the water needs outside of the city of Schertz going forward. The other issue is that we don't want to get in the way of the pipeline project, and the wellfield is not going to, because of the $12 million of work already done, is not going to take 5 years to produce. So the pipeline is likely going to be a complete 5-year project, and we don't want to develop the wellfield, have it ready to go, and not have anywhere to send that water to. So that's going to be delayed at least a year, and it's going to give us some time to continue to look at how that project should be repaid and should there be any changes in this cost allocation agreement going forward, which I'll touch on in a second. It's like I said before, all the O&M costs and the debt payment will be in that. Until it's producing water, the city of Schertz has agreed that we'll be on the hook for paying those debt payments. We had already agreed to that. That's already built into our rate plan. Maybe some minor tweaking as those repayment rates actually come in. But we'd already planned for that up until the time that the wellfield's producing water. The Guadalupe Wellfield will also have its own treatment plant. It'll be built for the size of the Guadalupe Wellfield, and then if there's anybody, just like we did in Gonzales, anybody else that wants us to take their water and treat it and transport it in the future, then they'll pay to expand that plant. It'll be built in such a way that it can be expanded easily, but we're not going to expand it for what we think may be coming, such as CVLGC or SAWS or maybe some other folks trying to move water through that part of the country down there. One of the big things that we got in this agreement that I think in a few years we're going to be able to look back and say was probably a wise move is that we put in a requirement that both cities and SSLGC will evaluate how the projects are funded every year and will report back to both city councils every year on the results of that look. We believe that once we spend more time and we really drill down into the numbers, that SSLGC, like a number of other water corporations around the state, matures, that moving to a one rate to pay for everything is probably going to benefit both cities, even though one city may not take any water out of the second field. But by doing that, we spread the cost of the entire operation across every customer we have, and that will help draw down the costs on both member cities. So, but we're just not ready to make that leap yet, and so that's something throughout the life of this agreement, actually, that we have to do. Every year we have to do that, and then we'll come back and present it to you. It'll be presented to the Seguin City Council as well. We also have language in there that says we need to work on renegotiating our current contracts, and that any future water taking that SSLGC sells will come out of the Guadalupe field first until that field is maxed out at its maximum capacity. It's going to be the most expensive water, and the way it's currently funded now, we want to sell that water first because it helps offset the cost of the Gonzales field and will actually help reduce the rates coming out of the water rates coming out of the Gonzales field. Both cities are going to have a 50% share in the well field. This started basically because both cities have paid a little over $12 million already. This was a little bit of a sticking point for me personally, just in that we're going to be paying the majority of the debt on that. But what we did was we really backed away, looked at the 1999 agreement that formed the corporation, and said, you know, really as partners, we're going to carry forward with this being a 50-50 project. But what we did to ensure the best interests of the city of Schertz, our partner, Seguin, and the SSLGC, is that we put in a formula in there that says if we sell water, that water is going to come out of the middle. So if we sell 20% of the well field capacity to somebody, 10% will come out of Seguin's share, 10% will come out of our share. So that we're dividing it in the middle so we don't max out Schertz's share because we're the ones that has a financial interest in doing that to draw the rates down for us. And then 10, 15 years in the future, different leadership in Seguin goes, well, we're not going to sell any of our share. We want to hold on to it. So we're dividing it out of the middle. And there's a clause that once that dividing out of the middle reaches what we're taking, if we've maxed out on the original Gonzales field, then we can get either Seguin's share of the Gonzales field or the Seguin share of the Guadalupe field that's untapped for our needs, so we can continue to maintain that even split out of the middle for the outside customers. So it protects both interests, and we also then put some clauses in there that if Seguin does have some growth, if there is a need for additional water for Seguin, that when they come on board, there's a couple different formulas of how they will either repay the debt payments to us that we've already made, or we'll take on a proportionate share of those debt payments moving forward. And then lastly, and really this was done because of what we learned, unfortunately, I don't think we did any formal presentations on this Guadalupe project over the last 2 to 3 years for this council. And so what we also put in there is a requirement for both cities, for our corporation, that if they make a presentation to any council, either of the two councils, whether at the request of that council or at the request of SSLGC, that has to be made to the other council as well, so that both city councils are crystal clear on and full transparency on how things are moving forward. And so that pretty much wraps up the agreement here in item number 4. It was a little bit of a process, but we got it done, and staff recommends that council approve this. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Waite. Council, questions for Mr. Waite? This is a seminal project and a complicated one. So, Mr. Zeus?
Mr. Waite, this is the second most important issue, the water and air, of an alternative. But it's SSLGC invested already over almost $13 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see in here that we applied for 7 well permits.
Yes.
Do we have an idea of the pumping of each well, the capacity? How much does it pump per an hour or minute?
So I'm not the engineer. I was telling Mr. Huff earlier that I went to Texas A&M, but they didn't let me in those buildings when I was there. I can tell you that 7 wells will produce 6,000 acre feet a year.
Wow.
So
that's great. That's a great accomplishment. I'd like to approve this resolution, Mr. Mayor, 16R69.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions from council? Mr. Thompson?
Want to commend the staff, mayor, and everyone involved in making this possible. One question, though. You said that the Guadalupe Wellfield development will be delayed at least 1 year, knowing that the pipeline will take 5 years, i.e. about 2021. When in this 5-year cycle would we need to begin development of the Guadalupe Wellfield in order to finish simultaneously?
So the engineers, with the design estimate, it's a 24 to 30-month process to actually make the field produce water. That's to build the treatment plant, get all the piping connected, and to get tapped into the line coming out of the Gonzales field to get the water up to us.
Anything else, council? Mr. Fowler?
Just, I guess for me, this resolution is also going before the Seguin Council at the same time. In fact, they're meeting tonight
Yes, they started at
on
5:30.
this. So even though SSLGC has agreed to it, both council has to agree to this before we can move forward.
That's correct.
Question, do we have a phone number of anyone there that we could call after the vote?
Oh, I have a feeling we'll get texts right away once that decision's been made.
Maybe they're waiting for us.
It could be. Any other comments or questions, council? In that case, I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
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 5 ayes and no nays, the motion carries.
Excuse me, Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Who made the second?
I believe it was Mr. Fowler.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, next. So apparently we've just told Seguin that we've moved. Hopefully that makes them comfortable enough to take care of their end of the business. Item number 5, Resolution 16R65. Now this is the longest caption I've ever seen. For those that are out there, it's an entire page written by bond counsel, not by our in-house counsel. Go. All right, yeah. I'll have to breathe during this one, so here we go. Item number 5 is Resolution 16R65. Consideration and approval by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas. A, approving resolutions previously adopted by the Board of Directors of the Schertz-Seguin Local Government Corporation. 1, authorizing the request of financial assistance from the Texas Water Development Board through an application for State Water Implementation Fund for Texas and board participation programs for the purpose of planning, designing, and constructing utility system improvements to assist in the I'm going to start over because this reads like something they'd write in Austin during the legislative section. All right, I'm going to keep going. I was at planning, designing, and constructing utility system improvements to assist in the implementation of the state water plan, ratifying such application as well as the terms and conditions set forth therein, and acknowledging the application submission to the Texas Water Development Board, and 2, approving the execution of respective financing agreements pertaining to the State Water Implementation Fund for Texas and board participation programs, and a master agreement pertaining to the board participation program by the Board of Directors of the Schertz-Seguin Local Government Corporation, and authorizing the mayor and city secretary of the City of Schertz, Texas, to execute on behalf of the City of Schertz, Texas, and any and all necessary documents and certificates, and B, ratifying, reconfirming, and readopting the provisions of a regional water supply contract executed between the City of Schertz, Texas, the City of Seguin, Texas, and the Schertz-Seguin Local Government Corporation, and C, approving other matters in connection therewith and providing an effective date. And then they have in red, gentlemen, a recommended motion. So, Mr. Waite.
So this is to approve the actions of the SSLGC Board to actually obtain the funding through the Texas Water Development Board. Mr. McCliney is here with any questions you may have, how it relates, how that works, and how it relates to us as a city. He said, he didn't want to come up unless you had questions, but I want him up here anyway.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Always good to be here.
Evening.
The Water Development Board's program is a subsidized program to facilitate funding of large water projects in the state that follow in the region plan. So 2 loans that we're looking at. One is a deferred interest loan that Dudley touched on that's going to save about $6.5 million of early payments, and that gets repaid to the Water Development Board as we add our customers. So it's a 40-year loan at the Water Development Board's loan rate with the 10-year delay of paying the full payment. That, again, allows us to grow into this without having the full payment. That's at the Water Development Board's borrowing rate, which is a AAA rated credit. We are AA plus, so we can't get this good of rate. The second loan is the SWIFT funding program that was allowed with the state constitutional amendment to fund new projects, new water sources. This uses the Water Development Board's rate, the AAA rate, and then we get a 20% subsidy off that. So right off their best rate, they cut 20% of it off of ours, and that's what we get to pay. We, the Schertz Seguin Local Government Corporation. Great borrowing rates. It's fixed. It won't change, and it will be set in September, their rates. We plan then to close and fund in November based off of the Water Development Board's rates. And those are the highlights of the loan program. I can go into more detail if you'd like. It has been a long, drawn-out process. I, too, would like to compliment city staff, particularly Schertz staff, on working to get this done. It was not an easy process. Dudley and Mr. Kessler are making it sound easy. It was anything but easy. And Mr. Greenwald would attest to that. He's been on the board level. Mr. Fowler's been on the board level. This has not been an easy negotiation, and your staff did an outstanding job of getting us over the finish line to this important project. Happy again to address any questions you may have.
You bet. Mr. Edwards.
On that rate, if you set the rate in September, is it set in stone? So if you're thinking about closing in November, you set it in September, it's set in stone, right?
Yes, we are going to get the exact rate that the Water Development Board gets. Then they take off 20% of that, and then for their costs, so I just want to be fully, you add 3 basis points. So their costs are put into the interest rate, but it is going to be set. We will know exactly what we will have the day they borrow their money.
Thank you.
Mr. Zeus?
So actually, the prepay, well, it's a 40-year term. The prepay is as the customers come aboard.
The delay is, and that's on the board participation, the Water Development Board participation. To make it easy numbers, say the payment would be $1 million every year for 40 years.
Okay.
We're going to pay 0 in year 1. We're going to pay 0 in year 2. Then we're going to pay 20% in year 3, 40% in year 4, 50% in year 5, and so on, until we're paying 100%. Well, all of those payments that we deferred have to be repaid back to the Water Development Board. But they're sitting over here they're not charging us interest on that. So that's the big benefit of that. So now, instead of paying the full bill, we're now 10 and 15 years down the road allowing for that growth to come in.
Wow.
And that program is built so we oversize lines today to benefit all of Texas in the future. That's why the board participates in this. The Water Development Board participates in the board participation loan. Different than the low subsidized interest rate for new water.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve 1606.
Well, the bond counsel has in red here some specific language. So I'll hand this to you, and at the bottom there, it's not unlike other.
That's it?
And then turn the page after you start with the bottom part, and the red at the top. It's not unlike other bond language you've done. So
We're not going to commercial after this.
yes, we'll need to.
A motion by Councilman Webb Zeus and a second
But Jim
Second.
Fowler,
Mr. Darrell John. I heard that. That the city council approve a resolution authorizing and ratifying various action and resolutions previously approved by the Schertz / Seguin Local Government Corporation.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions from council? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
aye.
5 ayes and no nays, the motion carries. All right, very good.
Just to let you know, Seguin is in
Okay, good. No need to get nervous yet to talk about something more contentious. Maybe they'll come out and they'll just get this done. All right. Item number 6, Resolution 16R70 is a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing the signing of a letter of permission for BCFS Health and Human Services Emergency Management Division to acquire a Texas Department of State Health Services EMS provider license and other matters in connection therewith. Mr. Waite.
So, back in the 2013 legislative session, there was a House bill passed to help the EMS industry combat fraud. It was a big problem, not so much in the San Antonio area, but of course the Band-Aid was applied across the entire state of Texas. And a very significant piece of that anti-fraud legislation was that if a new ambulance provider wanted to get licensed, they had to get the approval of the governing board in the city in which they were, or the county in which they were going to operate. We've never had one of these come before the city of Schertz. We have providers that operate in and around Jason's operation at Schertz EMS. But this is a new provider that is located here in town. It's BCFS Health and Human Services Emergency Management Division. In 2014, they located their emergency management division and all of their equipment in a warehouse out in our industrial park right off 3009. And since that time, they have cooperated and reached out to the city in a various number of ways to help us in our emergency management preparations. Culminating, you may remember on July 4th, that really large command center built on an 18-wheeler NASCAR car hauler chassis was there as the command center, the command post at the park. BCFS Health and Human Services Emergency Management Division is internationally known for doing sheltering operations. They take care in disasters or anything else. They do all over the world these sheltering operations where they go in, they set up shelters and they run them so the local jurisdictions or the region or the state, whatever the case may be, don't have to worry about that. One of the things they've had issues with is that when you set up a shelter, we're no longer allowed to cordon off people that have medical special needs from the general population. That's an ADA thing. So now they're all mixed up. And these shelters a lot of times will create an undue burden on the local public safety capacity. So they've already got a lot of people that have evacuated there, or if the disaster's in their community, they've already got their hands full. And then we have a shelter that's sending out 2, 3, 4, 8, 10 people a day to the hospital. So they've come up with an idea. They want to purchase and license 2 ambulances that will only be used when they deploy to disasters. However, because they're located in the city of Schertz, they have offered to the city, much like all the rest of their equipment, that if there were ever a time we needed to use that for local things, so maybe we had a local disaster, we've often been asked to do ambulance standby for the air show, and we've never really had enough ambulances to do that because the Air Force has a rather high requirement for that, that these would be assets that we could use as well. They're only going to be licensed. Their plan is to get the letter from the city of Schertz because they're located here. They don't plan to run ambulance calls day in and day out. And there's an exemption to this letter of permission that says anytime the ambulances are used on an officially declared disaster, they can operate anywhere in that disaster area without the letter of permission. So they're covered. They just need a letter of permission, and DSHS and them agreed that the city of Schertz would be an ideal place to do that. So the form of the letter that I attached is set out by the statute as to what has to be in it. It has to be signed by the mayor, and we'd ask council to approve authorizing the mayor to sign that letter for BCFS.
Indeed. And one of the benefits, I guess, for the city of Schertz is so much of that equipment for a disaster is going to be stored right here in Schertz. So
absolutely.
Anything happens to us and it's already here. It's a real benefit, there's no doubt. So, council, questions for Mr. Waite?
I think it's a great kudo for the city of Schertz to have something like that. Therefore, I'd like to make a motion that we accept it on resolution 16R70.
Second.
A motion for Mr. Fowler, a second for Mr. Edwards. Any other comments or questions from council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
5 ayes and no nays. The motion carries. Thank you, Dudley. Good stuff. All right, item number 7, ordinance 16S31. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, imposing a moratorium on both residential and commercial property development due to a need to prevent a shortage of essential public facilities generally in the area from Interstate Highway 10 to approximately 2,000 feet north of Lower Seguin Road between FM 1518 in the western boundary of the city limits, providing a reversionary clause, providing a repealing clause, providing a severability clause, providing a penalty clause, and providing an effective date. Mr. James.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be fairly brief on this. As I mentioned at the last meeting, at this point, because of concerns about fire protection services, especially in light of the hazards from Randolph, which are exacerbated by birds and whatnot, in order to implement our plan to get where we have a comfort level, we want to implement a moratorium on development, a temporary moratorium, or rather a moratorium on development. We held the public hearing and first reading of this ordinance last Tuesday. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on Wednesday. Temporary moratorium went into effect Friday, and then again you would hold this hearing and we would ask that you approve this ordinance. At that point, staff's first step is in looking at continuing the research we've done is to further our aims with regard to conversations between fire and the Air Force in terms of what we anticipate we need to do differently to deal with those hazards. But it's also likely that we will come back with a tweak to this to pull out areas that we have a comfort level, allowing development to continue within that area because it's outside the accident potential zones, the clear zones, and the ACU zones, and the areas really in between. So again, what we don't want to do is inadvertently hang someone up on the edge of this area that after a quick look, we feel like development can continue. To be clear, there isn't really anybody out there that has come in that prompted this. But what we wanted to do, frankly, to make clear to everybody is we worded the notice and the description of the area to avoid someone coming back and saying, I didn't think that included me. So we very broadly said basically from 10 up to about 2,000 feet north of Lower Seguin, and then 1518 over to the west. But certainly there are some areas outside on the very edges where, again, it's a non-issue that development, frankly, isn't affected by the APZs, clear zones, things like that. And once we, again, verify that, if we have a comfort level that we can provide that fire protection, because, again, the hazards may be less, we'll let them go forward. And then, again, we'll also look at potential land use changes going forward to mitigate those concerns as well. So be happy to answer any questions after the public hearing.
All right, very good. We have this on for a public hearing. So at this time, we'll hold a public hearing and invite anybody from the public that wishes to address the council on this matter to come forward and address us. We ask that if you do decide to address the council, that you state your name and your address. And we will ask that you keep comments down to about 3 minutes if possible. So at this time, I'll open the public hearing. Anybody that would like to address the council may come forward at this time.
Robert Brockman, 1000 Albell Road. I'd like to see a map of this. Mr. James pulled one up the other day off of Google, I believe, or so, but I think there should be a map available to anybody that goes in planning and zoning so they know if they're in or out of that area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else would like to address the council on this matter? Appears that I have no takers. So at this time, I'll close the public hearing and open it up to the council for questions of Mr. James. Mr. Thompson?
Not a question, just a commendation. It seems to be the general flow tonight, commending the city staff for a lot of things that are well done. This is one of those. And if there are no further questions, I would approve that we pass this ordinance.
Got a motion to approve ordinance 16S31 from Mr. Thompson.
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Edwards. Other comments, questions from council? Mr. Fowler.
I agree with Mr. Brockman. I think it would be good to have a map or something of that area.
Yes, sir, we will do that. In fact, I was talking with staff earlier, I think yesterday. We're going to have a meeting later this week. We'll prepare a packet of information, so if someone comes in, we can show them a map of the area. We can walk them through the issues. We can kind of walk them through the steps we're going to take to try to inform them about what they're doing, and so they understand how they can participate. But yes, it is a good idea.
And can you share it with us, email it to us once that's done?
Yes, sir. We can certainly email council that
Thank you
map.
so much.
Yes, sir.
Good job.
All right, nothing else, then I'll go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
5 ayes and no nays, the motion carries. Next item we have on the agenda this evening is item number 8, which is a public hearing on the proposed budget for the fiscal year 2016-2017, which includes Ordinance 16T29, an ordinance adopting a budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2016, and ending September 30th, 2017, in accordance with the Charter of the City of Schertz, Texas, providing for the filing of the budget, providing that this ordinance shall be cumulative of all ordinances, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date. Good evening.
Good evening.
It's budget time.
It is.
All right, Mr. Walters, what do you have for us tonight?
Very short presentation, followed by our second required public hearing on the budget, and then following that, a public hearing and first vote on the tax rate. Please note the tax rate does have specific wording to make the motion. And that is at the
Yes,
bottom
the
of
legislature doesn't trust us to do it correctly. They tell us exactly how to do it.
So I'll go over through a brief presentation. This is one we saw last time. Recent budget presentations, we did have 3 community presentations at Corbett North Community Center and Schertz United Methodist Church on August 11th, 17th, and 18th, as well as a budget workshop here in the council chambers on August 9th. I will be here if there's any other questions after the council meeting. The projected revenues for all of the city's funds is expected to be $72.5 million next year. The budget as proposed to council with last week's change memo was just over $69 million. General fund makes up 41%, water and sewer is 30%, EMS is 13%, and the INS fund is 10%. The other special revenue funds make up the remainder. New employees proposed with the new budget include 3 firefighters for Station 3. That was already approved on August 2nd, however. We have 3 police officers in the budget. There's 2 paramedics. There's an IT employee. There's a seasonal park worker that we're going to turn into a regular part-time position, and a part-time facilities technician that we're going to make full-time. Overall, it's about 10 full-time equivalent positions. Last week, we submitted a change memo to council. The general fund, or the health insurance increase was 4.9%, which was lower than what we had anticipated. It provided for a new vehicle for one of the new officers, replacing some police cameras that were becoming outdated. Some additional funding for the Junior Fire Academy, the seasonal park worker making a regular part-time position, and the facility technician making to a full-time. The savings allowed for them to make those adjustments, and then there's additional funding for library materials. Also in there was a parkland, all of the general fund items were actually netted to zero with the change in health insurance, so there was no change in the overall budget presented. On the parkland dedication, however, we did add additional $30,000 to help fund the the new playscape over by the bathroom next to the playscape. We had a revised estimate on that project. The general fund revenue is $28.5 million. The expenditures are $28.5 million. We had $8,000 overall increase in the fund balance from operations. However, we are planning to remove $43,000 in a planned expenditure of a vehicle. So this is actually proposing we reduce the fund balance by about $35,000. We are still well above our 25% estimated reserve policy requirement. We had a 5-year forecast this year. The 5-year forecast is all of the over-under on green, and the reserve funding, we have negative 2 years. Those are yellow instead of red because those are planned withdrawals of our fund balance rather than an operational imbalance. So with that, I will stop here and ask council to open a public hearing.
Indeed. So this is also an item that's for public hearing. Same rules as before, and I'll go ahead at this time and open the public hearing. Anybody that would like to address the council on this matter may come forward and do so at this time.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Glenn Outlaw, 3729 Forsyth Park. I just have a couple of questions, curiosity more than anything else. The first one being, is the dollar amount that we saved on the health insurance? And number two, if we'd reduced the budget by that much versus redistributing it, what would the effect have been on the tax rate? Thank you.
Sir?
Ken Greenwald, 205 Westchester. I didn't see anything in any part of the budget about the fire truck. Any work on it? Have we scheduled anything? Projected any funding? I've already offered to put in some money of my own, or my wife is putting some of hers in to do it. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to address the council? All right, it doesn't appear that anyone else would like to address the council, so I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm probably give staff an opportunity to answer the questions that were posed first.
In response for the first question, there was about $125,000 savings with the projected health insurance versus the actual. That is $325,000 is 1 penny on the tax rate. So it'd be less than half of a cent if we reduce taxes instead. 1 cent is about $20 on the average home. So you could say a little bit less than $10 would be the savings or reduction on the individual homeowner's tax bill.
Okay.
I believe the second question was on the fire truck, and Mr. Kessel may have that one.
Yes, just to remind council, it's actually the parade truck, the 1954, I think it is, parade vehicle. The engine was determined to be a complete loss. They need to rebuild the engine. It was determined to rebuild it with fuel injection, I believe, is what they said it would require. It's about $10,000, if I recall the latest estimate, and Mr. Wade had shaken his head yes. And so we're just factoring that into our regular work with our intention to get that done throughout this next year. So, Mr. Wade, is there anything that you would need to correct me on in this regard?
No, sir. It's a matter of getting the right group to work on it and then getting a firm price set.
So is our understanding that it will be fixed in-house, so once our fleet staff?
No, I think with the excess, that's actually going to be outsourced.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Council, questions for Mr. Walters? Mr. Zeus?
On the changes that I got, just one thing struck me. I went through it. One question, just noticing the increases in different department budgets. I mean, that's looked pretty close to normal to me. But one thing that struck me of 132.6% increase on the engineering department. I mean, I'm sure there's a great explanation for 136.
Yes, sir. The engineering department, we're actually moving 4 existing positions from water and sewer and drainage over to be staffed in engineering. So it's not necessarily an increase in the budget or increase in staffing. These are existing positions. They'll just be located there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Gentlemen, anyone else? Mr. Fowler?
Just one question. My mind is going. The parks, they had the senior center underneath them. I don't recall. I didn't see them as a line item.
The senior center is located in the city assistance portion of the budget. They have a separate line item there along with the patient assistance program and transportation assistance programs as well. So they're a separate line item and unlocated under city assistance part of the budget.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Thompson?
Move that we adopt this budget, ordinance number 16-T-29.
Second.
I have a motion for Mr. Thompson, a second for Mr. Fowler. Any other comments or questions from the council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. 5 ayes, no nays, the motion carries. Next item is a follow-on. It's the public hearing on the proposed tax rate and Ordinance 16T30, an ordinance approving the appraisal roll, setting the tax rate, levying and assessing general and special ad valorem taxes for the use and support of the municipal government of the city of Schertz, Texas, apportioning the levies for specific purposes, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date. Mr. Walters?
Good evening again. I'll go over a short presentation over the proposed tax rate before we open it up to our second required public hearing for state law. The effective tax rate this year for the city of Schertz was 48.03. The rollback tax rate, or the maximum tax rate allowed before voter approval is required, is 50.80. The current tax rate is 49.11, and the proposed tax rate is 49.11, and the budget is balanced at 49.11. Here we see the 1 penny is equal to $325,000 in revenue, or $20 on the average home. We are breaking that out and distributing that 49.11 slightly differently this year in the proposal. Tax rates made up of both the M&O, or maintenance and operations, which funds the general fund, and the interest and sinking tax rate, which funds the INS, or interest and sinking fund, and that pays the city's debt. The M&O is proposed to go from 39.59 to 31.68, or 0.0009 increase, and the INS is proposed going from 17.52 to 17.43, or 0.0009 decrease. Overall, the same tax rate, 49.11. At 49.11, the average in 2015, the average home was $186,000. Those same homes today are currently estimated to be around $190,000 due to the increase in value we saw on the certified tax rolls. At the same tax rate, the increase on the average home tax bill would be about $20.87, or $1.74 on your monthly escrow. New residents can expect a tax bill closer to $982 because the average home value in the city of Schertz is now over $200,000 with all the new development that's going on. So if a new person came in the city and bought a home this year, they could expect to pay on average $200,000, and then the tax bill that they'd be buying in at is $982. The city portion of your overall tax bill is relatively small, maybe about 1/5 of your overall tax bill. The school districts make up a larger portion. On top of that, you have the county tax rate. And if you live in Bexar County, you can also see the San Antonio River Authority, University Health System, and the college on your bills as well. The state does require 2 public hearings. We had the first on August 23rd. The second one is tonight. And with that, I will ask council to open up a public hearing.
Very good. This is also an item that's here for public hearing, and so at this time, under the same rules, I'll open the public hearing. Anybody that would like to address the council may come forward at this time and do so. It appears I have no takers. No one's even shuffling in their seats, so given that, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. All right, public hearing is closed. And council, questions for Mr. Walters? So I'm going to give this to you then, because the state legislature says we have to read it exactly as such in Austin. They don't trust us to conduct our own business all the time.
It's not in red, but I'll read it.
It's not in red, no.
I move that property tax be increased by the adoption of the tax rate of 0.4911, which is effectively a 2.2% increase in the tax rate.
There we go.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Zuz, a second from Mr. John. Any other comments or questions from council? Hearing none, then I'll have to call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
5 ayes and no nays, the motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Any word yet from Seguin? Are they still in executive session? Okay, very good. Next item that we have is a roll call vote confirmation. So Ms. Donna, if you would.
Consent items number 1, 2, and 3. Motion was made by Councilmember Fowler, seconded by Councilmember Assus. Councilmembers Fowler, Assus, John, and Thompson voted yes. Motion passed. Item number 4, resolution number 16R69. Motion was made by Councilmember Assus, seconded by Councilmember Fowler. Mayor Pro Tem Edwards voted yes. Councilmembers Fowler, Assus, John, and Thompson voted yes. Motion passed. Item number 5, resolution number 16R65, approving a resolution authorizing and ratifying various actions and resolutions previously approved by the Schertz Seguin local government. Motion was made by Councilmember Assus, seconded by Councilmember John. Mayor Pro Tem Edwards voted yes. Councilmember John Fowler, Assus, John, and Thompson voted yes. Motion passed. Item number 6, resolution number 16R70. Motion was made by Councilmember Fowler, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Edwards. Mayor Pro Tem Edwards voted yes. Councilmembers Fowler, Assus, John, and Thompson voted yes. Motion passed. Item number 7, ordinance number 16S31. Motion was made by Councilmember Thompson, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Edwards. Mayor Pro Tem Edwards voted yes. Councilmembers Fowler, Assus, John, and Thompson voted yes. Motion passed. Item number 8, ordinance number 16T29, first reading. Motion was made by Councilmember Thompson, seconded by Councilmember Fowler. Mayor Pro Tem Edwards voted yes. Councilmembers Fowler, Assus, John, and Thompson voted yes. Motion passed. Item number 9, ordinance number 16T30, first reading. Motion was made by Councilmember Assus, seconded by Councilmember John, to increase the property taxes by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.4911, which is effectively a 2.2% increase in the tax rate. Mayor Pro Tem Edwards voted yes. Council members Fowler, Assus, John, and Thompson voted yes. Motion passed.
Thank you, ma'am. Next item we have on the agenda, we have requests and announcements, and the first is item number 10, announcements by the city manager. Mr. Kessel?
Mayor, Council, I just wanted to highlight the water item one last time. This is an item that began a life maybe 10 years ago, 2006, when it was added to the Region L water plan, and it's taken this long to move us to this particular point. Mr. Greenwell was very generous in his comments. I know that the mayor of Seguin made some comments as well that were generous along the same lines at the SSLGC meeting. He's the ex officio member from the city of Seguin, as Mr. Fowler is from the city of Schertz. And I just wanted to make certain that folks knew how much I appreciate Mr. Waite's work on this. He's the one who's put in the lion's share of the hours and made the project move forward. His ability to keep a positive attitude, keep an eye on the goal is really remarkable, and even more so because this is not his traditional area of expertise. Over the last year and a half, he's learned probably more than he'll ever want to know about water at the wholesale level, and just wanted to extend my thanks to Mr. Waite on that as well. Make sure he got the full credit for the project.
Indeed. It was very well done. Very well done. Item number 11, future agenda item requests for the city council. Gentlemen, anything that we need to have on a future agenda that we don't already have scheduled? Mr. Fowler.
Mayor, here in the near future, next time or the time after, I'd like to revisit one of our ordinances, 15F18. That has to do with the services of bare waste, and how in some neighborhoods we have some zone for 96-gallon container is picked up only once a week, and others are have 2 containers but at a lower capacity. And Here not several months ago, I guess we're having complaints from one neighborhood of a lot of flies and things being around those large containers. And the cost for at the Zone 1 and Zone 2, or Section 1 is Zone 2, is the same, but the benefit, I think, of having 2 pickups instead of 1, especially in some of these newer developments that are getting larger by the day, that we need to revisit that, okay?
Very good. We shall have something put on the agenda when staff is prepared to do so.
All right, thank you.
Very good. Gentlemen, anyone else? Hearing nothing, I'll move on to item number 12, announcements by the mayor and council members. I'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Edwards.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say congratulations to the San Antonio Bank for their grand opening. Saw a lot of the officials out there, a lot of the candidates running for office as well, but it was a great event.
Excellent. Mr. Fowler?
Just kind of a personal thing, I guess, dealing with our Love Where We Live. The October 22nd program is moving very well, and we're already talking with the neighbors in the Mobile Villa trailer park area, and coming up with several nice projects. And one that I've been working on lately is, I think some of you know about the collapsed roof on Cabana Drive. Well, demolition took place on Monday. That roof is gone, and we're cleaning up between the trailer and the carport. And our next phase is to stabilize. We've already stabilized the carport, but we want to put it back in the usable condition now. So we're moving on that project. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Zeus?
Just a compliment, Mr. Mayor. The retaining wall on Savannah Drive really came out great. Great job, and the appearance is very good. It was very clean. Good job. Really nice.
You good, Mr. John? Mr. Thompson?
Yes, sir. Regarding the Bank of San Antonio ribbon cutting, I stayed a little bit longer after most of the people had left. Virtually the entire executive team of the bank was there, and almost to a person, they mentioned to me how surprised and pleased they were to see such a tremendous representation of the city there, the city staff, council, that they've done several ribbon cuttings for other branches. First time this has happened. And so they were very pleased with the city of Schertz, and a new tenant looking at that same facility, the same shopping center, was also there, and chances are they are going to sign the lease based on the presence of the city staff at that ribbon cutting.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Mr. Waite?
Yes, sir. Mr. Cockrell just texted to let me know that they got out of the executive session. They entertained that agreement we talked about, and they passed it unanimously as well.
Unanimously? Oh, all right. That means this community, the surrounding community, is going to have water for a very long time to come. Congratulations once again. Mr. Greenwald, thank you for your work. Mr. Waite, Mr. Kessel, everybody that was involved. It's a huge, huge deal for this city. And if there's nothing else from council or staff, then we stand adjourned. Well done. Well done. Unanimous.